I just put on record, Monica. Can you just double check that for me?
Yes. You are recording.
Okay. Well, good morning to you all. This is Joseph Antel from Heart Sound Recorder, and welcome to you this beautiful day. And those of you in the Mountain Time Zone and Pacific Time Zone, and good afternoon to all of you in Central and Eastern Time Zone. As you know, the Heart Sound recording webinars are now primarily or only on Tuesday for 2 hours. On Tuesday, we had 91 on, which was great to have you all on. And we went 3 hours, so I'm willing to stay on for sure. On Thursdays now, I'm emphasizing my new book and information that I teach related to my new book, Adjuvant Protocols for Healing. The Thursdays usually will go an hour to an hour and a half, and then we'll have questions and conversation after that. So today I wanted to review with you a series that I have started with thanks to Lynn Mayer for helping me create these PowerPoints and put them together on the endocrine system. And I gave this first lecture, as you can see, in December 2019, but we forgot to record it. So we are now recording it, and all of these recordings will eventually be on my website, the Heart Sound recording website, or another website that I might create. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that yet. But all the notes and recordings for my lectures on my adjuvant protocols for healing and this series on the endocrine system and other things I may do in the future. So as most of you know, I have been in for new ones on today. I've been studying Dr. Lee's work and especially the endocrine system since I was 20 years old and even earlier than that. My father had a great interest in the healing of the endocrine system. And if any of you wish to review more of my spiritual teachings, you would have to go to my other website, which is simple to remember, josephantel.org, which is more of my esoteric side of teaching and things I've written and taught. So if you would like more, which I know some of you do, that's the place to go. Of course, through those teachings and through my father and others, I realized that the endocrine system is the most powerful system in the human body as far as functioning as a human being on planet Earth. Though it be but little, it is fierce, as Shakespeare said. And it's very true that just small amounts of these hormones that the endocrine system secretes provide the relationship between all the systems of the body and the communication. If any one part of the endocrine system is not functioning correctly or is inhibited in any way, the whole body suffers. And there is no question about that. And you'll see as I get deeper into this, you'll realize that that is the fact. And that's why when I first met Mark Anderson, I was living in Dallas, Texas, and I was going to go to Parker Chiropractic College. And then actually at that meeting, I met Mark Anderson. He ran an endocardiograph on me and basically saved my life because I had terrible murmurs, and I was running 6 miles a day in extreme heat. If you've ever lived in Dallas, Texas, you know what heat is. And the stress on my heart was pretty obvious when he ran the graph. And that's when I began my interest in the supplements and what they do for the body. And at that time, of course, it was Cataplex B, now called Cataplex B Core. And at that meeting, Mark and I, and the chiropractor, Irv Shepard, in fact, his son still practices in Dallas. I don't know where Irv is now. He's probably in his 90s by now. I had stayed with him and just learning the life of a chiropractor and Irv's tremendous knowledge of standard process and Dr. Lee. But Mark and Irv and I went and met Dr. Donald Kelly, the man, One Answer to Cancer, who, little did I know, later on, years later on, when I got cancer, saved my life as well. So that was quite a memorable weekend with the four of us. And the rest, of course, is history. And I went on to learning and studying as much as I could. And then, of course, now passing this on to all of you. And remember that, as I wrote here, anything that is recommended in the way of food, nutritional supplements, and lifestyle should be based on the foundational premise of sound endocrine harmony. That was the premise of Dr. Lee's teaching and life, and it has been mine as well. As we know, the endocrine system now, there are other organs that secrete hormone, but the ductless glands, there are only 7. Now, some of you are very familiar now with the hypothalamus, but remember, the hypothalamus is not a completely ductless gland. It is a neuroendocrine gland. So is the heart, which I'll show you in a minute. So remember that there are 7 primary, and today we're going to go in depth looking at the pineal gland. I've already recorded, just so you all know, a pituitary training and a thyroid training, not based on what other people teach. You can go to other practitioners and learn what they teach, or other teachers. I'm teaching you what they don't teach. Now, some of that, of course, overlaps, but my teaching is unique because I delve into the history and the application as Dr. Lee would have applied these nutritions. Dr. Lee was interviewed in 1959 in May, and this was a Milwaukee newspaper, Herald of Health. And this was a quote from that. It must be remembered that metabolism of the human body, being an animal function, is a breaking down process of complex compounds that are built up by the systemic processes of plant metabolism. The animal or human body cannot build up organic compounds, i.e., the integrity of the reserves of the body, of what is there, the constitution of the body. It cannot build up organic compounds and is wholly dependent upon the vegetable kingdom for organic foods. And you could add here, what eats these plants, i.e., the organs and glands of animals that eat these plants, and then we eat those organs or extracts from them and endocrine glands and other tissues. Vitamins are a class of organic compounds, probably the most complex of food nutrients. all the ductless glands, thyroid, and he included parathyroid, which it is an endocrine gland. It's part of that thyroid gland. Thymus, pineal, which we're considering today. Pituitary, adrenals, gonads, and pancreas. The Isles of Langerhans are the endocrine part. Just as a gee whiz fact, there are a million endocrine isles, as they say, or islands, in the human pancreas. A million. This is why someone with diabetes and problems with their pancreas, the pancreas has been damaged to such an extent because it's so plentiful, the provision there of endocrine secretions and functions. And the spleen. Now, he considered the spleen an endocrine gland, but it is not a ductless gland, but nevertheless. So all of these, and I would add the heart in now, which you'll see in a few minutes here when I read this article, must have one or more of the 3 classes of vitamins. And I would say that at this point in our evolution as human beings, because there has been generation after generation of such breakdown, that you need all 3 classes of these vitamins in order to secrete their vital fluids. And if deprived of the vitamins, will atrophy and cease to function. So what does he mean by the 3 classes of vitamins? As I teach, what he was speaking of is the accurate vitamin, mineral, and like protein, the nuclear protein of that particular organ, gland, or tissue. If not, then as you can see, he wrote, there is lessened resistance to infectious disease, which we see in the world today. It's not the fault of the virus. It is the breakdown of the human system because of decades and decades of malnutrition. Malnutrition, inflammation, disease. And here it is, including dental caries. Remember, Dr. Lee was a dentist. He taught at dental schools. He created, when you go into the dentist, remember, Dr. Lee, when that drill goes on and you hear that drill, Dr. Lee created a lot of the mechanisms in that dental drill. He had the original patents. He was a multimillionaire at 35 years old. Truly brilliant man. Many other things too. Disturbances in metabolism. About half the United States is now overweight. All of this, such as diabetes, rickets at that time. Rickets is not as common now. Lessening or cessation, the ending of endocrine function, which is disturbance to organic function, including mental activity. And you'll see as I get into the pineal and the brain, how much this relates to what we have going on as far as Alzheimer's and dementia. I mentioned that the heart is considered an organ that produces hormone now. It's a hormonal gland. Just one paragraph here. Another component of the heart-brain communication system, and here is the brain. When we say the brain, based on what we're considering today, we want to think of the pineal gland, the hypothalamus gland, and the pituitary gland. Other parts too, which I'll show you, which you may not know about. The heart-brain communication system was provided by researchers studying the hormonal system. The heart was reclassified as an endocrine gland when in 1983, now I never knew this, I should have, but maybe you didn't either, a hormone produced and released by the heart called atrial natriuretic natriuretic factor, ANH, was isolated. This hormone exerts its effect on the blood vessels. So here is a hormone, a communicating substance that can regulate blood pressure, either dilating the blood vessels or constricting them as needed. On the kidneys, the adrenal glands, and on a large number of regulatory regions in the brain. I bet you didn't know that the heart, we thought the adrenals affected the heart. Oh no. No, what they've isolated affects kidneys, adrenals, and then there's the dance, of course, in between, because the adrenals do secrete hormones that affect the heart. And on a large number of regulatory regions in the brain. Well, what are those regulatory regions? The pineal, the hypothalamus, the pituitary. That is the brain of brains for the whole body. It was also found that the heart contains a cell type known as intrinsic cardiac adrenergic ICA cells. These cells release noradrenaline. Now, you will see later on that you cannot make melatonin for the pineal. It's one of the reasons I put this quote in here. You can't make melatonin without noradrenaline. So the heart affects the adrenals affect the pineal. And dopamine neurotransmitters. Well, here's the hypothalamus. Here's your Parkinson's issue. The heart. You telling me, Joe, that the heart has to do with Parkinson's? Yes. Just read an article, which I'll give to you next week, that they're now saying that one of the outcomes of this COVID virus is Parkinson's. And this was not done. It was in the Lancet, which is a peer-reviewed publication from Israel. And I'll get that to you next week and remind me if I don't. Lynn will remind me because she already asked for it. So once thought to be produced only by neurons in the central nervous system. No, the heart. More recently, it was discovered that the heart also secretes oxytocin. Well, wait a minute now. That's by the pituitary, yes, and the heart. Commonly referred to as the love or bonding hormone. Do you think we need this hormone right now? In addition to its functions in childbirth and lactation, recent evidence indicates that this hormone is also involved in cognition. The heart has to do with cognition, tolerance. Man, do we need tolerance. Adaptation, complex sexual and maternal behaviors, learning social cues, and the establishment of enduring pair bonds. Concentrations of oxytocin in the heart were found to be as high as those found in the brain. Do you think we need to keep our hearts healthy? What have we all been doing for the last, when did we start our webinars on the Heart Sound Recorder? 2016? Going on our 5th year now. Why have we been doing this? Because this is significant. And it has to do with this hormonal system, this dance. So in your notes, you're going to get this chart that I created several years ago with what Dr. Lee said, to put this very simply, and you can look up dosing in my new book for sure. The clinical reference guide has good dosing, but you'll see the vitamin, the mineral, and the like protein. And I added in the herb, and I added in the action step, the lifestyle step that is needed to work with each of these 7 glands. Now, you can't take all of this, but at least throughout the year, quarterly, you should change out your supplement program to include most of these things. Certainly, we should be living by these action steps for sure, in order to keep that endocrine system balanced. And so I want to make a comment because all of you are thinking, what the heck is vitamin U? Well, I'll tell you. Now, vitamin U is something that Dr. Lee started back in the 19, let me see, when the first product he made was comfrey pepsin, so that'd be okra pepsin now. And let's just see what year that was produced. Okra pepsin. Dr. Lee was aware of this in 1962. So about the time others found this vitamin U. You may, if you ever grew up in a family that used natural substances for healing, I did. And I was associated with people that only used natural substances for healing, natural nutrients from food. If you got a peptic ulcer, if you had colitis, if you had hold on a second. If you had H. pylori, a lot of heartburn, you used cabbage juice. Now, we would mix it with goat's milk, if you can imagine how good that would taste. Actually, goat's milk is very good. We had raw milk back then as well, but we mixed that because the cabbage juice on an irritated area could be painful. So we use the milk as a buffer, which always worked well. But it helps to the vitamin U helps heal peptic ulcers. That's what we used. And it eradicates the H. pylori bacteria. It also helps prevent and heal the mucosal lining from the esophagus to the rectum. And here is just one little explanation. Vitamin U was the name given in 1952 to a substance found in cabbage juice by Dr. Garnett Cheney. Even though you will find pills confidently labeled vitamin U for sale, there is no consensus among nutritionists or biochemists of what it actually is. There is no disagreement that drinking a quart of cabbage juice per day is an excellent remedy for peptic ulcers by the identity of the magic ingredient, but the identity of the magic ingredient remains unknown. Well, it's vitamin U. Among these guesses are that it is allantoin, which is also found in comfrey root, long used in folk medicine, both externally and internally. And so you could say that, well, originally, Dr. Lee in the comfrey pepsin had that's why vitamin U is tied in with this healing. And it is the vitamin for the pineal, because when people have digestive issues of any kind, especially Crohn's, by the way, that is a pineal issue. Now, we need the relationship, and if you listen to my pituitary lecture, you need that connection of the pituitary to the digestive system. That's the key. That's it's going forth. The expression in the body is through the pituitary, But without the relationship of the pineal, these the healing factors of the vitamin U and what the pituitary does cannot work properly. And so when you think of the pineal, of course, you want to think of, I'm going to give you three things: chronic conditions and illnesses that never go away. Crohn's, eye issues, ear issues. The individual that there is always something wrong with them. There's always something breaking down. It's one thing after another. Or people that age rapidly, the rate of deterioration is just out of control. And people that can never heal. Now, as I go through this in relationship to the pineal, you're going to see why this is so. Also, anyone with closed head injuries. Now, we've said we use the neurotrophin. Absolutely. Here it is. Here it is. Because there is pineal in neurotrophin. You don't think when they use the brain extract, they take out the pineal gland, they leave it in there. Now, the highest amount of pineal is in neuroplex. But to keep this consistent, I use neurotrophin, and there's plenty in there of pineal. But when there is a closed head injury, giving just brain nucleoprotein is not enough. You need the nucleoprotein of, in many cases, the pituitary, the hypothalamus, and the pineal. And here is where it ties in with chronic headaches, with memory, cognitive issues. And the other has to do when think of pineal and using pineal support and substances with sleep issues, circadian issues, rhythm issues, people that cannot get into a rhythm in their life, whether they be young or old. And as we transition through life, 0 to 30 has a certain rhythm. 30 to 60 has a rhythm. And certainly the phase that most of us are entering into, or quite a few of us, is 60 to 90. Why do so many men die after they retire? They shouldn't, because they've been used to a particular rhythm and they can't get out of it. They're locked into it. Women do much better with that. And this is a pineal issue. These are the substances that men need, or anyone needs, in making a transition in the rhythms of their life. Mental and emotional challenges, absolutely. Absolutely part of this. So just to briefly review, not go into too much, the mineral that is related to the pineal, the brain, the eyes, there is more zinc in the brain, in this area of the body, what I'm describing, than any other part of the body, except for the male prostate. So in women, there's more zinc in their pineal, brain, eyes, than any other part of the body. That's why zinc is so significant. And of course, we've talked about the main problem that, and Dr. Lee said that in what I read to you. Once necrotic tissue begins to leak from the eyes, from the brain, from anywhere in the head into the bloodstream, then those necrotic proteins don't belong there. And the body produces those antibodies, cleans those up, then it attacks the host organ. Why is there so much macular degeneration now? Why is there so many problems with mental function as we age? Shouldn't be. And so this is why you have to use the protomorphogen that ties in. Now, of course, in the case of the eyes, you would use the oculotrophin along with, in many cases, either neuroplex or neurotrophin, but to start with neurotrophin. And this is why I say write in your, one of the questions that you must ask in your intake of a new client, have you had any closed head injuries? And Dr. Lee said from birth, it can happen at birth. People suffer their whole life. It's very important. And then, of course, the herb that I have selected, there may be other issues with this, other conversations with this. Other herbalists may think differently. But from everything that I have read, Gotu Kola is the herb that applies specifically to the pineal gland. And then, of course, walking in sunlight every day, because we must, in order to keep that circadian balanced, it is the balance of light and dark, of light and darkness. And this is where people that have sleep issues, they don't get up with the sun and go to bed with the sun. People with severe sleep issues must do this. And my son-in-law did a study when he was in medical school. In fact, he did 2 or 3 where they did a study on people that are sleep deprived. They brought them into the wilderness. They had a campfire, no other light, no phones, no cars, were dropped off. After 3 days of going to bed with the sun and rising with the sun, these people were sleeping through the night. It's hard to live that way now. But that balance of bringing light, and this is why we should be walking in nature. We should be in tune, as all plants and animals, everything on this planet that is living is in tune with, other than human beings. We should be honoring these rhythms. They are exact, and they're not going to change for human beings, for our schedules and what we want. And so here it is. Here is that, really that triad that Dr. Lee based all his work on: vitamin, mineral, protein, and as I say, I've added in the herb and the sunlight. How much was the pineal known about and honored? Pineal gland's been known about, and that this part of the head, as I've said, of the brain, for thousands of years. This symbol is on many Egyptian artifacts and walls. And it was known as the Eye of Horus. Here's the pineal, the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and other parts, this part of the brain. And it was a symbol of protection, power, health, restoration. It was considered the eye of God. And here it is. And you can see that how the wisdom of those at that time, how did they know about this? I don't know, but they did. So the pineal gland in itself means, it's Latin for pine cone. And many of the ancient teachings, kings, queens, and people of power used this as a symbol. And this is something I wrote that is on my josephantel.org website, if you want more of the spiritual side of Joseph. This is a paragraph I wrote many years ago. Since the beginning of time, the pineal gland has been revered by spiritual, religious, and tribal leaders. The pine cone, which is the symbol of the pineal, revealed in many ancient teachings, represents eternal life and the seat of higher awareness. The Pope's name, Holy See, has a direct reference to the third eye, which is another symbolic term used to describe the pineal gland. The pine cone is also part of the tip of the Pope's staff. Crowns of jewels worn by royalty were designed to focus cosmic energies through the pineal for greater knowledge and inspiration from God. Such is the cone-shaped wizard's hat. It's not a dunce hat. When they put that to punish the child, you can remember the stories of that. No, just the opposite. It's to bring in that clearer energy. All of these things that we've never thought about. A large pine cone statue graced the temple of Isis. Now, this isn't the Isis that we know of today. So this was well, here I say it here. It was said that this was a group of women that were priests and priestesses. It was said that her priests and priestesses, Isis was a female god, had profound healing powers and could interpret dreams and control the weather. The statue today resides still in the Vatican, which was built, the Vatican was built over the remains of an Isis temple. So you see that this little tiny gland, size of a pea, is quite symbolic and it's quite actual. So as far as we know, the primary secretions of this are 3 to 5 years. And it was thought to be a part of a larger section of the brain. In fact, the human skull has indentations where some say that we had eyes in the back of our head as well as the front, if you want to get into it. And there's a book that I'll show you here that teaches you all of this, all of these different ideas if you're interested. It's fascinating. I have a funny story. You know, my brother and I used to act up a lot when we were kids, and my mother wouldn't even turn around. She'd be cooking dinner, we'd be acting out, and she'd just say, you know, stop it. Don't do that, Joey. Don't do that, Bobby. And I asked her one day, I said, Ma, how do you know? How do you know what we're doing? She goes, I have eyes in the back of my head. So she would say, watch out, behave yourself. So here it is. And this is part of the brain. The pineal is not protected by the blood-brain barrier. It's out there. And that's why chemicals like chlorine and especially fluorine, the pineal is very exposed to those substances that are detrimental to the pineal. It is located, whoever created this magnificent human form placed it in the most protected part of the body. It's exactly placed in the center of the brain between the two hemispheres. Wow, talk about balanced. And they say it has microcrystals, calcite in it. Who knows what's in there? Thought to provide the power to see what cannot be perceived by the senses. Wow. In fact, the human eye has the similar cellular makeup as the pineal. Now, not all of the pineal, but some of the cells in the human eye have the same cellular makeup as the pineal. That's why it's called the third eye. The philosopher Rene Descartes called the pineal the seat of the soul. Others call it the transcendental gateway, associated with esoteric knowledge related to consciousness of self. It is called the third eye. It's light sensitive, as I said. This is why walking is so important without sunglasses. And as I said, fluoride destroys the pineal quicker than any other substance of the outer world. This is why you're seeing so much dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and MS, because of the amount of fluoride in our life today. And remember, fluoride depresses melatonin too. The creation and the use of melatonin is depressed by fluoride. And you'll see, I'm going to read you something. In fact, I'll read it to you right now. There was a man named Henry Harrower, and he was a great friend of Dr. Lee's. He actually gave the product Antronex, that formulation, to Dr. Lee in his latter years. He passed in 1951. Lee died in 1967, and they were great friends. And I want to read this. This is in his book, Practical Endocrinology, which is thick as my book, but it's got so much information. So there were doctors all over the world studying these glands before the chemical hormones were beginning to be made. And the use of glandular substances went by the wayside. After Harrower died and Lee died, they were just gone from memory. But we still have them. And that's why I continue to teach you. This was discovered in 1917, I'm sorry. Described Walter Timme of New York described a form of muscular dystrophy which he connected with dysfunction of the pineal gland. He called it, that's MS. That's MS, everyone. It's either MS or it's Lou Gehrig's disease. But they discovered that it was a pineal dysfunction, and he called it pineal myopathy. The diagnosis was based on the discovery of a condition of pineal calcification. So once again, fluoride in MS, fluoride in Lou Gehrig's disease, fluoride in muscular dystrophy. Here's another excerpt from his wonderful book, Practical Endocrinology, which, by the way, Saline River Press carries, so you can get it. This is what they knew about the pineal. You don't even hear about it. They say, oh, it doesn't do anything. It's atrophy, just like the thymus. Wait till you hear my lecture on the thymus in December. The pineal appears to have, atrophied my foot. The pineal appears to have a definite important function of promoting the development of the human nervous system. What? They knew this in 1913? Why aren't we using pineal extracts? Well, we have melatonin. Well, I'll get into that with you. Not good. The pineal gland will not only hurry the slow mind of the defective child. That's what they found. These children with all kinds of mental defects. And it helped, the pineal extracts. You can read it in his book. But it will also arrest or retard many cases of premature senility, senile decay, and mental faculties. Wow. Wow. Should we be using these substances? You better believe it. So here is that, again, that eye of Horus, a little bit better, blown up. And you can see, as I said, the pineal gland is placed beautifully in a most protective area. And you can see the pituitary. I wanted to point out this right here, this nucleus here is part of the hypothalamus, by the way. It's part of that. There's your hypothalamus, there's your pituitary. If you have children that have lazy eye, this is where the problem is, in the optic caesium. It's not caseum, it's cat. Yeah, caseum.
Chiasm.
Chiasm, sorry. Yeah, there it is. And there is where that is coming from, by the way. I've cleared several, not many, but several children with lazy eye by using pineal substances and by using hypothalamus. Neuroplex would be the best product, by the way. So what do? Medically, they just go in and cut the nerves. Well, that does a lot of good for the rest of their life. Why not fix it with nutrition and other cranial sacral work too? It can be a problem with pressure in the head as well. And of course, with me, you always get the spiritual part of this whenever you're looking at the endocrine system, because each endocrine system has a very specific relationship to the spiritual, to the higher connection with the universe. So Jacob called the place Peniel, saying, "It is because I saw God face to face, and yet my life was spared." So he obviously had some realization, and there was a great fear, of course, over the many centuries, that if you were to look at anything that's spiritual, they use the word God, but if you could see the universe, that you would immediately burn up. But not so, not so. But very interesting, huh? And then this describes the end of life. If the silver cord is loose. So that silver cord, as far as I'm concerned, is the endocrine system. When that begins to go, is the beginning point of the death cycle. So I'm not going to go into all of the significance of these other golden bowl and pitcher. They're talking about the pineal and the pituitary and the hypothalamus here. So, and of course, you know me, I always want to put something in, but of my generation. Well, there was a great awakening. Any of you that are baby boomers, right? In the late 60s, early 70s. Here's the Moody Blues that wrote this in the early 70s. And tremendous words, really. And they're talking about this awakening through that vortex, that pineal vortex, that window. Some call it the window of heaven. So here it is. And just beautiful words, which I'm not going to word. And they called it, I remember the silver cord, they called it the lost cord. But there was something awakening in all of us. This is when, Mark and I and a few others found Dr. Lee then. We found this pathway to helping and healing others. We were young. I was 20. Mark was 21. We were very young. But once we found it, then, of course, we spent the rest of our lives to this day working with it and helping others. Here is from a human anatomy, 2006. What is the pineal? It's a small gland shaped like a pine nut. They didn't say pine cone, but pine nut. From here, the name pineal. We do not know. Now remember, this is an anatomy book, used all over the world, about its endocrine activity. We are sure that it produces melatonin. Of course, we all know that, which acts on the hypothalamus. So here is so much credit given to the hypothalamus in the last 5 to 10 years. Very little given to the pineal. But the hypothalamus can't do anything, nor can the pituitary, without the pineal functioning well, healthy. The production of this hormone is stimulated by noradrenaline. Here it is, everyone. Here's the dance. amongst these 7 glands and their relationship, which I could spend days teaching you, and I will try to teach you as much as I can in relationship to that dance. The adrenal glands, yes, have a direct effect on the pineal and the production, as I said earlier, of melatonin. This is why people have to take synthetic melatonin, because their adrenals are so burned out. Their kidney chi is a wreck with all the stress of life. They're not in the circadian rhythm of life. And so, of course, the pineal gland, which needs the whole body, the body is one and is controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. Here's your pituitary action, right? Mainly hypothalamus pituitary action. Remember when we look at that with the first sound in the heart sound recording graphs? How are they? 2 sympathetic, 2 parasympathetic. There it is. Activated in turn by visual stimuli. The activity of this hormone helps regulating the sleep-wake cycle, the rest activity cycle. Do any of us have a do any of us have a true rest activity cycle? We work ourselves to death, right? That's the way the Western world is. It's not how the rest of the world, most of the rest of the world lives. Unfortunately, we do live that way. So we have to come out of that. We have to come in and find our rest activity, especially 60 years and on, so that we have that quality of life from 60 to 90. All that we've done, we can enjoy it. We can enjoy our families. We can enjoy our friends. Challenging right now, but, and the ovarian cycle. So just remember that this relationship from pineal to pituitary, which I've said, that relationship, pituitary, regulates these hormonal cycles in men and women, in women and men. A defective functioning of this gland has been related to certain forms of depression and seasonal affective disorder, i.e. SADS. So, what is known as far as the rest of the world about helping this gland? Well, here's one. Alzheimer's disease, which remember ties right in, not what part will we say, oh, that's the brain. What part of the brain? The pineal. This pineal hypothalamus pituitary axis, it's key, everyone, to the rest of the body, but especially brain function. Oh, turmeric, I don't know. We need some case studies. Oh, do we? It's been used for 5,000 years, which is likely why still today, both rural and urban populations have some of the lowest prevalence rates of Alzheimer's disease in the world. They don't get it because the curcumin, especially, that substance. A recent study on patients found that less than a gram of turmeric daily, is, 2 tablets of the turmeric forte taken for 3 months resulted in remarkable improvements. Give it time, everyone, and you can read the rest. This is the other book that I told you about, the pineal, that my dear friend Dr. Wayne Braddock in Denver sent me as a gift. And you want to know about pineal and its symbolism and what it meant to the body, you should get this book. You can get it online. And I'm not going to read this article. I read this article. It came out of this wonderful book that I can't find anymore, but at least I have this article, Nature's Medicines. This gentleman in the 60s toured the world and found out not what science said, but what people said. And you'll read about, we talked about the turmeric. Now this is Gotu Kola. And how this article, if you read through it, Gotu Kola will increase the span of life by 50 years by developing a brain incapable of breaking down for a very long time. That's all I need to know, everyone. You better believe I take this, and I'll show you my brain blend, how I do that in a few minutes. The average span of human life could considerably be increased if people ate Gotu Kola. And here's the product. And the great thing about this product from MediHerb, Kerry Bone's formulation of this was brilliant. Of course, he is brilliant because he understands these plants. And as I say, that's why Gotu Kola to me is the herb. I guess you could add turmeric in there, and that's fine. Better to have two substances for one part, very significant part of the body than just one, as far as I'm concerned. But as the Gotu Kola extract leaf, and you heard my lecture on healing discs and other substances in the bodies around in the body, from the discs to the knuckles of the hands, as far as collagen building and preserving and preventing scar tissue. It's one of the big things that happens with the pineal and the other parts of the brain, that it calcifies as we get older. And you can see it. It's called arcus senilis. And if you study Bernard Jensen's work, I have his graph right up here. If you see it up in the eye of people from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock, you'll see a clouding, or it looks like an actual calcification. You know somebody's got it. Look at your parents and grandparents, see if they've got it. And this is a key in preventing that calcification. It keeps collagen functioning, soft collagen and normal function of collagen. And grapeseed is very similar to Cyruta Plus, with the factors in the grapeseed that help with the integrity of the collagen part of vascular tissue and other tissues in the body. And of course, our wonderful ginkgo. That's why this is such a great formula. 2 tablets twice a day. It's all you need. Give you plenty. And this Gotu Kola, of course, helps lubricate those red blood cells, which I'm not going to go into now. It's WD-40. It helps with the transit of the red blood cells through the vasculature of the body. And again, another article on this spice. And look at this article, what it says: the spice that prevents fluoride from destroying your brain. Well, what part of your brain? Pineal, hypothalamus, pituitary. If you don't think anyone over 60 needs to be on this, think again. And again, this is the curcumin. And I forgot until just this moment, teaching with you, that fluoride is found in everywhere today, from antibiotics to drinking water, no stick pans, toothpaste, making exposure inevitable. We're all exposed to fluoride. And my dear friend Jim Forleo in Western Colorado has been pushing back on the town that he's living in from having that in the water. I don't know how he's done, but Durango. And I'm not sure how it went, but bless him for doing that, getting it out of the water. All the more reasons why research proving this common spice can prevent fluoride damage is promising, more than promising. And here's the turmeric. And Bruce West, wonderful man, chiropractor, California, writes a newsletter that goes out to 10,000 people. You should be on his newsletter if he's still doing it. He's getting older, but I'm not sure if he's retired now or not. I don't think he is. And
he is still doing it, Joseph.
Still, oh, great.
He sends it out to about 80,000 people.
80,000? I thought it was 10. Wow.
No,
Wow.
80,000 a month. It used to be 100,000, but people keep dying.
Well, they're not taking the products he's recommending. But anyway, this is a great article. And he mentions in here about the turmeric with type 2 diabetes. Wow. Didn't know that. So there it is. And of course, the iodine, really the one that has promoted the use of iodine in this country so beautifully, David Brownstein. And his book, if you don't have this book, you should get it, and his other books. Iodine, Why You Need It, Why You Can't Live Without It. Melatonin is able to enter every cell of the body. Wait a minute. This wonderful substance that ties in with all the esoteric things that I have mentioned to you. Oh, it's everywhere. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. God's love is everywhere. The universe, the universal intelligence, if you don't want to use God, the word God, is everywhere. It's in every cell of the body. Think about this. This is significant material, information for all of you, for all of us. It is made from the amino acid called tryptophan. The most tryptophan is the least available of all the amino acids, and I'll get into that in a minute. It's highest, in case I forget to tell you, in protofood, and we'll talk about that. Tryptophan is converted into serotonin, and then from serotonin, that neurotransmitter helps produce melatonin, which is an important neurotransmitter thought to be associated with depression. Serotonin is converted into melatonin. High levels of tryptophan can be found in the following. Well, we know turkey. That's why Thanksgiving and Christmas we eat turkey and then we go lay down, take a nap. Yes, eggs, cheese, peanuts, organic, not sprayed, and these other substances, a lot of nuts. And here it is. Tryptophan is an amino acid, 5-HTP. Now, you can get this in synthetic form, but it is not the same. You have got to make this. And this is where reductionism over decades has washed out. And that's why a lot of these things don't work as well, because it's not to take these things, it's to give the body what it needs so it makes it. So 5-HT is serotonin, by the way. So these two are synonymous. Okay. And then that neurotransmitter makes melatonin. What's the function of melatonin? Wake-sleep cycle. Orchestrates the entire endocrine system. Yes. Don't get stuck at the level of the hypothalamus and pituitary. Think higher. We have to go to the highest place for our healing at every level of our being, mental, physical, emotional. We cannot stop till we get to where the door to all that is, all that's possible is present. People that dream a lot, body temperature, blood pressure, everyone, regulation, right? And the onset, balancing that onset of puberty. You see so many young men and women that are developing too soon. This is all off. The circadian rhythm is off in these young people because they're not getting the nutrients. And blood pressure. Now, which I forgot about. Something to think about. Oh, I got this client, Joe, and I can't regulate their blood pressure. Yeah. Let's work with their pineal gland. And look at this amino acid, what it does. You know, gingivitis, all kinds of conjunctivitis, eye issues, mental derangements, melancholy, lethargy, depression, apprehensiveness, photophobia, edema, degeneration of the heart muscle. What? Wait a minute. You're telling me that I need this tryptophan, this amino acid for my heart? Yep. Headaches. People that can't sleep, not enough tryptophan. And my teacher, beloved John Courtney, here is an article that I asked him about. He wrote the article, and this is an excerpt from it after, and I can send you the whole article. After I said I was a new rep, I don't know when he wrote this article, in the early 70s. I said, John, I just want to know, because I was young and impulsive, I just want to know the best product Standard Process makes. Give it to me. And he said, well, you know, we have a lot of products we want to sell, Joe, so don't tell them just the one. And I said, I won't. He said, no, I know you will. But I had to know. Protofood, this is John, is the most important product Standard Process makes. It's the result of many years of research. Critical elements, deficiency in the average diet, other than vitamins and minerals, amino acids for everything, every tissue in the body, from your bones to your ears, all the tissues. You must have all 22. And I reviewed that with you when we last week or 2 weeks ago when we talked about osteoporosis, osteopenia. You can't just have, you just can't have these 14. You've got to have these essential. And these are destroyed by cooked food. You overcook a steak, chicken, fish. Everybody's so afraid, you know, of bacteria in these meats. Well, be afraid of not getting these. And there's your tryptophan. You've heard me talk a lot about tyrosine too. You can't make adrenal hormone to help make melatonin without tyrosine. You can't make thyroid hormone, adrenal hormone, or pituitary hormone without this one. You could go into each of these. And so more about serotonin. So the protocol that I use, which is a little bit just slightly different than the chart that I had created, because my understanding and life experience and what I do is maturing too, and my clinical findings are. And when I found out the highest amount of pineal is a neuroplex, that's when I got to thinking about this. So here it is. 2 twice daily. Remember, this has protomorphogens in it, empty stomach. And these are the dosages. And we know anybody, of course, not many people are traveling right now, but when you balance that, if you use neuroplex with jet lag, and it's in my book, under jet lag, you'll see neuroplex and G and the other things. And here is an article on the pineal gland. Remember what I read to you earlier about children's development of the brain and nervous system? Here it is. Updated view on the relation of pineal gland to autism spectrum disorders. Yeah, they don't know a lot about what's going on. We know about substances that push children into these syndromes, but they have no answers. We do. We do. It's called food is the answer. So I'll let you read that through too. How am I doing for time here? Okay, good. And now regarding melatonin, now you can read this through, but I want to just speak to this. Just like giving someone a synthetic hormone, thyroxine is an example. If you give it even in a you know, it's not a natural form because they have to make it. There's no hormone in it. So they're giving this, otherwise it would be a prescription. So it's chemically made, and the side effects, of course, are always of concern. Now, listen, I know people have used it. They've told me about it. And they said, Joe, this works great. You should be more open to it. I am open to it if you need it, but not all the time. because the side effects. It can lead to sleep issues during the day. You're tired all day long. It really can interfere with fertility. It can have real issues with conception. Breastfeeding. Be careful if women are depressed and they're breastfeeding and you put them on melatonin and then their breast milk production slows down. It's the melatonin. It can cause depression. It can worsen depression. So be very careful. Use it for a short period of time if you think that it helps. But we have to get the nutrition in so that these organs come on their own. Because what this tends to do is it stops the production of melatonin in the pineal itself. If you're giving it to it, the body's going to say, well, I don't need to make it. The adrenals say, well, I don't need to give them any noradrenaline. We already got it. We're fine. Thank you very much. No, not at all. May cause headaches. It may imbalance serotonin levels in the brain. It may raise blood pressure, cause interaction with other meds. Dizziness, nausea, drowsiness, increased appetite and weight gain. It may interact with blood thinning, anticoagulant, convulsants, contraceptive meds, diabetes meds, and immunosuppressants. So I don't want to give this a bad rap, but I want to tell you the other side of the story because our work is to get the body to function normally. And here is the product that I feel is so significant. Now, I have never gone more than 2 twice a day, but listen, everyone, experiment with it. Go up to 6 a day. I don't think you need to go beyond that, but maybe, not sure. Remember, on an empty stomach. And then, of course, my brain blend is very similar to the Gotu Kola complex in the tablet form. I add in the bacopa and there's no grapeseed extract. And this is also in my book. So researchers find that reducing brain inflammation could potentially reverse dementia. Hello, here's your turmeric. This is why it's working, everyone. And if you get and the Gotu Kola especially. The last piece about this related to the pineal, because it relates to other neurotransmitters, is it all started with minor slips you easily dismissed as senior moments. I say this all the time. You forget your keys. You called someone by the wrong name. The word you were looking for was at the tip of your tongue. All of us, especially anyone over 60 now, but you couldn't quite grasp it. You don't feel any older, but you do feel yourself changing. Researchers agree that this could be a sign of something more serious. A study published in the British Medical Journal. This is really these, I tell you, as far as medical science, these gentlemen are much more open to natural substances of any country in the world that I know of. Maybe Israel and India, but of January 2012 was concluded that age-related cognitive decline begins much earlier than expected, by our 40s. Even more distressing, this decline can progress at very unpredictable rates. Science has identified that acetylcholine, here's your cataplex G. You can't make this neurotransmitter for the pineal and upper parts of the brain without choline. Here it is. A key neurotransmitter is responsible for forming new connections and strengthening neural pathways in the brain. In other words, keeps your mind sharp. However, persistently low levels of this key neurotransmitter places you at risk. Without healthy levels of acetylcholine, the brain can physically shrink. Oh, I've never read this. At which point the damage can be very difficult to repair. Oh, shrinking brains, what is that? Shrunken heads? Jeez, I'll let you read the rest of this. So, and this is why if you think of Dr. Lee's wisdom, I marvel at this. You know, what did he put G in? Catalin. It's in Immuplex, all the multivitamins that we have. He puts it in Drenamin. He put it in, he had a standalone product, choline, soybean lecithin, which I think I have a list of products with it. Here it is. Choline itself, soybean lecithin, and G. This would be about 1 or 2 per meal, mainly in the evening for poor sleepers. And then this is in the morning, you know, 3 and 3 morning and at lunch, or 4 and 4 Cataplex G anytime. And then of course the closed head injury protocol, which I'm going to leave with you, which is also in my new book. And I'm not going to, this is in my book too, the various protomorphogens I take Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. It's a heart graph of mine in your notes. So I trust you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it taught you some things you didn't know. And remember that the universe is in us. This was I was at a very low point in my life at one point, and my father sent this to me. It was out of a magazine. And all he wrote when he sent this to me, I cut it off in the bottom. At the bottom, he said, perspective. Love, Dad. So here it is. Here is a brain cell, and here is the universe. Look at. Yes, it's all in us. What is out there is in us, and what is in us is out there. So that beautiful connection is with us all the time. And we have the privilege of having standard process and MediHerb to understand what these great teachers and explorers of the human body and related nutrients have given us and passed down to us. Now, if you want more information, of course, a lot of what I've taught you and you've learned from Mark Anderson and others is in the historical archives. If you want to get into it, in Saline River Press, they have provided you with all of that free of charge. It's all there. You want to go into it deeper, just put in pineal gland, put in hypothalamus, put in the fine box. So great to be with you all. I'm going to, yes, yes. So I'm going to, I'll leave it on. I'll leave the recording on. Go ahead. Any questions?
Just to add what you said, you know, the pineal gland is about the size of a rice grain. And
yes.
It has the highest concentration of energy than any other gland.
That's right.
And it also has the most blood flow per cubic volume than any other organ except the kidneys. So imagine that.
I did not know that. That is amazing. Wow. And the thyroid too then, because all the blood moves through the thyroid every 17 minutes. So that's it. You wouldn't think of the pineal, but I love that. I love it. That is great. Wow. Thank you, Dr. Mendoza.
Joseph.
Wow. It's whoa.
Your protocol, your pineal protocol, you went by that really fast. I did not see that in the book.
No, I don't. I put it in. That's right. I don't think I put it in the book. That's right. Well, it sounds like here it is. And you can get these notes, so you'll have it. Yeah, it's Neuroplex, G, zinc, and turmeric, and Gotu Kola. Yeah. All right. Did you take a photo of that with your phone? Okay, I'm going to mute you back out then. All right, someone else wants to come in. We'll just take a few more minutes here.
Joseph,
Yes.
this is Maria Long in Colorado Springs. I've been very concerned about my mother in Boulder and the smoke and everything, and I was wondering how you were doing in Loveland.
Well, it was very bad last night because we had fires on both ends of us. We had one to the north and then one to the south where you are, and all the dust and the particles came to us last night. So we have ash everywhere. But you know, such is life, you know. So
I know. Well, just for all of you in that area, we're praying for you.
oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. I just spent $20,000 on a new heating and cooling system at the beginning of this year. So my house is fine because I don't smell anything in here. So it must have good filters.
I guess so.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey, Joe, it's Paige.
Hey.
You mentioned thyroxine when you were talking about the pineal gland. Can you touch on that a little bit about how?
Oh, I just was using the parallel of if you take thyroxine, then it is well known that the thyroid will just stop functioning. It won't produce any of its own. And that is my concern about the overuse of synthetic melatonin for the pineal. Because I had read, I didn't read that exact quote to you, but when I was reading about melatonin, they were saying, if you take it ongoingly, it will stop your body won't won't remember or won't want to produce its own. And that is my concern, that we encourage our bodies to keep going and make these substances through the nutritional cascades that we're using. So instead of relying on, you know, synthetic forms of anything. So that was my point.
Gotcha. It was to just compare it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was just a parallel comparison. Yes.
Hey, Joseph, in the pineal chart, when you had the vitamin, the mineral, and the protein,
Yes.
and the pineal itself, you were talking about vitamin U as an uncle, and then you said ochrapepsin or cabbage juice or whatever. Would you put somebody on ochrapepsin while taking the zinc and the neurotrophin?
Yes.
So, because I never thought of giving somebody ochrapepsin at the same time.
Yes.
So, but like in the vitamin, the mineral, and the protein.
Because I'm glad you brought this up, and I forgot to mention it, Sue, because when they changed, see, it used to be comfrey pepsin, so it had the comfrey root with the allantoin in it, which is vitamin U. You remember the one article I read, the guy said, we don't know, but the closest thing we can figure is vitamin U is in the comfrey root, not in the leaf. And so when they changed this product, okra doesn't have a lot of vitamin U in it. Pepsin doesn't have vitamin U. But what they did was Standard still has 30, 40, 50-year-old comfrey plants. They extract the allantoin out of the plant and they put it in the ochrapepsin. And they also put it in Gastrex, by the way.
Okay.
So they preserved that vitamin U, that high concentration. Listen, you can't, you take 6 ochrapepsin a day. Remember you said a quart of cabbage juice? It's probably 10 times that if you take 6 ochrapepsin of vitamin U. Okay. That's why I kept this the same. Otherwise, I would have had to have found another product. But it's the allantoin, which is the vitamin U, that is the significant for vitamin specifically for the pineal.
Okay, and would this be like a month you put somebody on this, or to clear, quote unquote, the pineal gland of the fluoride and so, or is this just?
I can only give you what Dr. Kelly said. Mm-hmm. Dr. Kelly said if I could give one supplement to the world to prevent cancer. Now, I don't know if he was referring to the taking off the mucus barrier on the small intestine so that proteins are digested more easily and effectively, because that's where a lot of rogue cancer cells get fed by those rogue protein cells that should have not been broken down properly. But little did he know that the vitamin U in that product also prevents cancer, so it's a big claim to make, but you can read about it, because pineal has a lot to do with good pineal health has a lot to do with good endocrine health with preventing cancer.
Right.
So
Yeah, melatonin too.
right, that's right. That's
We
exactly
natural melatonin, but they're touting melatonin to take it for preventative of cancer. So that's
right.
awesome.
Right.
We
So
want to get the mechanisms going instead.
yeah. So Dr. Kelly said, as far as dosing, you were asking about that, to take 6 ochrapepsin a day for, I think it was 6 months, the first year, to clean that mucosal lining. And you'll see that if you do that, that you'll have these strands. It looks like rope coming out. Now, not right away, but down the line, 3 months, 4 months into it, you'll see that that is removing, it's discharging that mucosal barrier, because Dr. Kelly said it gets like a plastic on your small intestine. Then you're not absorbing anything, especially protein, very well, or if at all. So then he said to do it 6 weeks, 6 a day for 6 weeks every year thereafter. So that's the only dosing that I could tell you that I've learned from my teachers. So
That's fantastic. That's really a very important nugget.
yeah,
Because
so
everybody should do this, like you're saying, to clear the small intestine. The problem is most people that have any sort of dysbiosis or whatever cannot absorb nutrients in the small intestine, because that's where you absorb them, because they're full of yeast and plaque, and just like the colon has mucoid plaque. So that's really awesome. Ochrapepsin.
because I've had cancer, I do a month every year. I do a month of 6 a day every year.
That's fantastic.
Joseph, I'm sorry, what was the initial time
that's
period on the ochrapepsin?
The first year, Dr. Kelly said 6 months, 6 a day, to really not ream out, but it's actually a dislodging of that plastic that ends up in our small intestine. And as I say, after the 3rd month, you're going to see stuff coming out of you did not know was in you. So let me tell you, I'll warn you, it's not scary, but it's curious. And then he suggested another 3 months after that rope-like white stuff starts coming out. And then every year thereafter, he said 6 weeks at 6 a day. So
Thank you.
6 months, 6 a day, 6 weeks, 6 a day.
Would that be 3 twice a day?
Yes. Yep. Yep. And you could take that anytime with meals because of the pepsin in there. The pepsin actually helps break down. Remember, that was the first enzyme ever discovered, because it digests the collagen that holds the meat together, especially red meat, which Dr. Kelly said anybody that's got a history of cancer should not have red meat every day, or even several times a week, maybe once a month. So it doesn't make red meat bad for everybody else, just for people that have had cancer. But any collagen from chicken or pork, or that's what binds the proteins together. The pepsin breaks that down to make it more, again, easily digested. So, well, great, everyone. Thank you all so much for hanging in there and being on. And I will talk with you again next Tuesday. Send me your HSR graphs. We've got some great graphs to show you that we've, Lynn and that has a story and to discuss and look at. And I'll look forward to being with you again. Stay safe out there and blessings to you all.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much,
Thank you
Joseph.
so much.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Thanks so much.